The reason we're in Boston is something you said. It impacted me in a very deep way, and I'd like to show that to you. After your third year, you get an extension, correct? Mm-hmm. And then at the press conference, you said something, this was your quote. You said, "It's an honor to be a member of the Boston Celtics. We'll continue striving for growth in pursuit of Banner 18. And when we talked about that, that was intentional verbiage there, right?
Yeah, and that pretty much sums up how I feel. I mean, and you know, my old boss, Todd Ledbetter, who I referenced already, said, you know, used to quote Abraham Lincoln, "I apologize for the length of this letter. I didn't have time to write a short one." And, you know, all this babbling that I've done up here, I could have just said that.
Well,
yeah.
So I'd like to make, I think there's three components here. This first one, why did you choose the word member as opposed to coach?
Yeah, we all play a role. You know, my role is similar to the rest of the coaching staffs. You know, I have a small kind of, I guess, front office opinion role. You know, and I'm in front of the media a lot and all that other stuff, but my role is my role. I just have I'm a part of a team trying to achieve something.
And then we talked about the growth, and you just mentioned when did you read, how old were you when you read this book?
I don't know, when did it come out? Was it 2010?
2006, I believe.
So I read it, and then I think I read it, if I didn't read it my first year as a head coach, I read it shortly thereafter.
She's fascinating, isn't she?
Really good, really good. You know, like when I was a kid, I always got autographed things from, you know, I always wanted autographs of my favorite athletes, right? So my dad was a doctor, and so occasionally he'd see somebody come in the office and he'd go and get it scribbled on his, you know, his steno pad. So it, you know, so that was always fun. But a couple Christmases ago, my aunt, or not my aunt, my wife's sister-in-law got me a signed poster from Dweck with the steps that she wrote in the book. So I guess I've transitioned to a person who for Christmas gets autographs from higher education.
There you go, man.
Which a lot of those, like a lot of, you know, which is, I feel bad for them because I'm not near at that level. There's a reason I'm just a coach.
Yeah, they're in a different sphere.
That's right.
And we did a case study with Carol. And so I brought 2 clips, and I'd like to ask you questions from those clips. Here's the first one. I asked her, how can you tell
and I've never met Carol, so I feel bad. Like, I'm not going to act like I know her. So.
Well, you got an autograph, so that,
I do have an
that
autograph.
counts for something, right? Here's what makes a great educator.
A great educator is interested not only in their students' development, but their own. A great educator never stops stretching and learning.
So my question to you would be, how important is it for coaches to model what their expectations are?
Yeah, I think it's really important. But not necessarily because of the way that everybody's following you. I think it's just important because, you know, it's all about getting better. And it's all about trying to figure out different ways to get better. I mean, there's nothing better than a good book. There's nothing better than sitting in a group, you know, a table full of coaches or educators or people you really admire, or people in positions of leadership, and listening to people share thoughts and stories on that. That's probably my favorite thing to do other than coach.
Well, you host a collaboration.
What's that?
You host a collaboration where you bring people
in. And I think that I've always enjoyed that. You know, my first year as a head coach at Butler, I got invited, before I had ever coached a game, to the University of Florida. And Billy Donovan had just won 2 national championships. They had beaten us when I was an assistant to go to the Elite 8. And I'll never forget, like, talking and you know, some of these people are raising their hands and asking questions, and I'm like, there's no way that you're curious about what I'm saying. And so I appreciate being entertained as much as anybody, but man, it was kind of an eye-opening moment. Like, here are the best guys in the world, and they're not learning anything, but they're in each of the speeches, everybody's writing down notes the whole time. and everybody's asking questions, and it's totally interactive. And all of a sudden you realize why Billy Donovan's as good as he is. You know, you realize why everybody wants Ron Adams on their staff in the NBA. You know, all those things are pretty obvious.
Well, and that's what I asked Carol next, is so how can you tell that a teacher is growth-minded? And here's what she said.
If you use the same notes and the same formula for teaching that you used 5 and 10 years ago, you're not growing and learning.
And so what I would ask you is, if you look at just your career as an NBA coach, so the last 4 or 5 years, okay, what's been the biggest area of growth for you with your coaching approach?
Well, one of the most exciting things about taking this job was that I felt like it would stretch myself to the nth degree. You know, I knew I wasn't as good of a coach as I wanted to be. I thought that this would be a great challenge to that. You know, whether I was coaching in college or coaching here, every film I've ever watched, I've learned something from the coach that we're preparing for. And, you know, and I think that all coaches would say that. I mean, I've literally stolen everything we've done from something that we've watched somewhere else. And, you know, and so the creativity of others has really been of great benefit to us. And, you know, I agree with that deal there about, you know, the more that you can stretch yourself and the more you're willing to take a risk, even if it means you fall flat on your face, the more, you know, the more you'll grow, the more you'll get better.
Well, and maybe the last thing I'd like to just touch base on this growth point is, Bill Belichick said this, that the difference between professional sport and maybe college and even high school is that teams are not together for the full year. And growth is something that everyone can buy into, right? As opposed to maybe it's harder to get them to buy into being a Boston Celtic when they don't know if they're going to be here in 2 weeks. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and I think but that's the responsibility of everybody in your organization being fully committed to each person that walks through that door with the exact same, you know, level of enthusiasm, whether you think they're going to be there for 10 years or 2 months. And I think that, you know, that's where I'm really lucky to have the staff that I have, because they invest in everybody like that. And ultimately, if you do that enough, then guys feel really good about where they are, because, you know, like you said, they're getting better. They know they're on the right track and hopefully building winning habits.
And I think that speaks to how you can keep it all in perspective while chasing Banner 18. Let's give it up for Brad.
Thanks. Thanks, Brett. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Thank you.